Is there anything more precious than our children? Some say children are the future. Others say age is just a number. Persona 4 Golden is a game about the search for truth in the age of innocence, and how scary yet liberating truth can be. The central idea is that the child is the father of the man, that locked away inside all of us is the seed that sprouts into the flower. Choosing how we cultivate and nurture our true selves determines if we will become a good seed or a bad seed. The casting of adolescence into the roles of our shadows is probably why the Persona games have come to be so universal. Because we all start out as children and can relate to that time of escapism and pure-hearted wonderment about the world around us, before we grow up to be cynical and weary of personal accountability and responsibility. As we develop into self-aware, conscientious beings, we lose heart and begin to project our innermost desires and detriments outward. Those qualities that we wish to keep concealed but are too fearful to confront head-on. Instead, we draw others into our circles, playing God to one another, forcing our own ideas of how the game should be played, reducing the other to a puppet in our theater of life. We seek comfort in the company we keep because they reflect back on the type of people we truly are, the kind of person we are too afraid to see in the mirror, which is why discovering the true culprit in Adachi is so heartbreaking, so spine-chilling, because he was one of us all along. He ate the same food as us, shopped at the same stores, and was a frequent guest that we accepted into our home. He was Detective Dojima's understudy, an officer of the law. Adachi helped Nanako-chan do homework. But he was a nihilistic serial killer, and he was our friend. But really, we all played a part in the death of the innocence and innocence itself. Given the right conditions, the festering darkness inside of us, the loneliness and boredom we find all around us, could manifest itself into an Adachi. Without friends and loved ones in life, we really are nothing. We know nothing about ourselves or what we wish to do. I finally found the word that I was looking for to describe the Phantom Thieves and the investigation team. That word comes from the script itself. These characters are magnanimous. It's a beautiful thing to show patience, understanding, and forgiveness, even toward those that wrong us unprovoked. Because in our attempts to harm one another, we are really seeking to harm ourselves. Compassion is one of the highest traits a person can have, the quality that defines a hero. It's this quality of the writing and characterization that elevates the funny and facetious into an earnest, sincere psychological drama. It's what makes Persona 5 Royal a masterpiece, and Persona 4 Golden, and a few other Atlas games, into something not far from that height. The characters feel real because they are flawed, and yet they never stop seeking and showing us the way. The most brilliant aspect of the Persona games is how they make you aware of each moment in time, making you conscious of how you make use of it. Every interaction is fleeting, every encounter is a trade-off. School is incredibly tedious and dominating, but when the summer rolls around, you start to miss people. As seasons change, so do people, and we grow up fast. Time goes as quick as a turn of page. Those we love so dearly may one day be the source of resentment, and back to love again. Every moment expresses an idea. A year is like 169 hours or something like that. All great games feel too short. The calendar system is incredible, one of the greatest of all video game mechanics because it simulates real life. Although many of Persona 4's design qualities are as dated as the calendar itself, the art style of Shigenori Sojima remains utterly dazzling throughout the years. The characters feel so lifelike, with incredible performances by one of the great video game voiceover casts, Troy Baker, Laura Bailey, Yuri Lowenthal, Aaron Fitzgerald, Johnny Young Bosch are memorable actors that give some of their best career performances here. And of course my favorite of all, the music of Meguro-san, which is some of the most atmospheric and harmonious in any soundtrack you'll find. I don't know how they find these beautiful Japanese singers, but they do, and so is Shioko Hirata, a one of a kind. Inaba, the small setting where the murder mysteries take place, is as much a character in the story as any of the portraits of anime bliss. I'm from a very small, rural place myself, and I can relate to the tight-knit community where everybody knows your name. Every face feels like family, and every location is like a landmark because it's all you have to go off of. Such as Junes, a new superstore arriving in town which is the cause of both celebration and agony for its residents. Its arrival fascinates the locals, bringing new possibilities to those simpletons who are bred off of the recycled antiques of the generational hand-me-down businesses. The Amagi Inn has a hot spring and home-cooked meals for a one-night stay. And Junes is your one-stop shop for all-you-can-eat steak, kotatsus, and big-screen TVs. It's like a paradise of endless opportunity, but for the small-time entrepreneurs of Inaba, it's a nightmare that threatens the extinction of their business. The catchy theme tune is attractive, and it's a homely hub if we've ever seen one. It's a sign of change and an omen of bad things to happen. It's a memorable, cozy location all the same that makes Inaba intimate. A quaint stage for a character study. I like the old feel of Yasagami High as you walk down the stairs with the low-budget wooden floors to meet your friends for lunch break, feeling like a king entertaining his guests. You can join a couple of school clubs and fraternize with the band geeks and the jocks, getting the best out of both worlds.
Now listen
Mr. Moroka and the thirsty Kashiwagi remind us of how much we can hate our teachers, but we know they mean well. It's a great way to affect normalcy in a game that is anything but. You soon discover a portal to another dimension through a CRT TV, and meet a ridiculous furball. Fog rolls in thick and dead bodies start appearing, dangling from telephone poles, and no one can spot the killer who was in plain sight. No one really notices during the bright rainbow kaleidoscope of the intro that the undertone is grim, and this is what I love about the Persona games. The slim contrast between what frightens us the most and what sparks our imaginations. To me, it's one of the most chilling sounds and images that I've seen in a story, when the eerie music comes on during the fog, just after the Midnight Channel plays. To think the killer could be someone so close to you, yet so far gone in his mind, is truly terrifying. The way Persona 4 does the Scooby-Doo villain rabbit hole shtick, where they keep changing their mind on who the culprit is, ends up being a bit tiresome. But I think the backstory behind Namatame, the true hero, juxtaposed against Adachi, is brilliant and riveting. One aside is how genius it is to have Adachi be voiced by Johnny Young Bosch in English, who also plays the protagonist, even though he doesn't say much as you. It's a small detail, perhaps a mere coincidence, showing that there are indeed two sides to a coin. It didn't keep me guessing because I went into Persona 4 like many people will now, having been spoiled about the true identity of the killer beforehand. In truth, it is a common theme across Atlas games. But because of the dynamic between the heroes and the villain being a sympathetic one, because it ended up being someone who stabs you in the heart, makes the unfolding of the mystery an intriguing, engrossing experience, because it's intimate.
The finalized design for Nanako Dojima. The key element of this design was a younger sister all the characters would love.
Oh, welcome home, big bro.
There's a wonderful, sweet character named Nanako Dojima, who creates an anchor for the setting and story to hold weight. Everything she says is impossibly adorable, from her karaoke sing-along to the Junes theme on TV, to her enthusiastic exclamations of "Big Bro" every time you enter into the home at night. Nanako makes playing as a silent, empty shell like you, Narukami, feel more important, because we have a little sister to look after. She's a constant in the story, an indelible imprint on the warm feeling of nostalgia Persona 4 Golden gives off. The writing of her character arc is almost a work of genius, with a list of warning signs leading to a sinister build-up to the climax that sees Nanako kidnapped and endangered. It's a truly disturbing and gut-wrenching twist to see Nanako fall into harm's way, and a unifying call to arms to stop the madness. Nanako is a bubbly, friendly little girl, but she has a bashful side, her own fears and doubts about her father, and grief for her deceased mother. We get to nurture her through dialogue options that offer reassurances, and in turn get a look into her mind, revealing a child who very much understands big concepts underneath a naive, childlike perception, and a curious intuition that is often lost as we become adults. We all wonder about death and what it means, if anything, more than making life seem more valuable in the interim. The intelligence of the Persona games is in how they take their time to establish characters and develop themes that guide us on the path the storytellers want to take us. If Nanako had simply been killed off at the beginning of the game as some sort of desperate plot device, that would have given us shock value, to be sure, and perhaps left us in a momentary stupor. But it would not have been suspenseful, and it would not have compelled us to act, at least not in the proper fashion. In fact, Persona 4 actually does kill off a young girl at the beginning of the game, Saki Konishi, who only really begins to feel like a tragedy after we go through the S-links to learn more about her and the impact she had. She's still someone we never really got to know or care for like we did Nanako, who does hit us hard when we see her hurting because the game succeeds in making the player feel as involved in her story as much as she is a part of ours. The greatest moral dilemma comes when confronting Namatame, after Nanako has apparently just died, and the player is given a choice, persuaded by the passionate voice acting, to either take retribution on the supposed killer, or to walk away. This is how you do a true RPG. It's at this crossroads where you can remain magnanimous, or become everything you hate, and both arguments seem compelling in the context. The social links in Persona 4 are all amazing, and I found every one of them to be heartfelt and introspective. I especially enjoyed the old lady Hisano, who tragically harbors guilt over the death of her husband, calling herself Death, because she wished for his passing due to his dementia. I felt involved in learning about the stories of these NPCs, and I felt good about myself, helping to ease the pain and doubt they suffer. Bringing Eri closer to being a mother to her stepson, or helping Sayoko realize her true potential, that she does care about helping the sick, are heartwarming human stories. I also really enjoy Teddy as a character. He's a lighthearted troll that just wants to be accepted. As a mascot, he can quickly oscillate from being annoying to being lovable, and I almost like him as much as Morgana. Some of the other cast members feel really good as well, even though I think there may be a few too many senpais even for my liking. But seriously, this Rize girl is thirsty as hell. I like her character and can tolerate her because Laura B reminds me much of her role as Catherine, a character that she seemed to be born to play. She's perfect as Rize here too. The weakest character has to be Marie, who really does feel shoehorned as she adds nothing meaningful to the main narrative to justify her last-minute integration into the story. Where Persona 4 shows itself to be obviously dated is that most of the S-links don't provide the kind of benefits of the Persona 5 confidants, especially in regards to enhancing the capabilities in battle. The dungeons are essentially copy and pasted, just a means to bridge the gap between narrative developments by offering a change of pace from devouring dialogue on screen. This is a brilliant dynamic in Persona 5 Royal because that game offers so much variety in level design and enemy encounters, not to mention a metric ton of style. Persona 4 dungeons are tediously linear in layout, and almost indistinguishable from one another except for a few gimmicks here and there and a change of OST. Yes, the floors are largely randomized, but you quickly sense a pattern, and many of these floors can be ran through in mere seconds by opening doors that happen to contain the exit. There's a few cool themes infused into the dungeons as the game goes on, and of course, heaven is pretty beautiful visually and thematically. But there's very little reason that exists to replay these dungeons outside of farming for XP. I do at least appreciate the fact that you can return to them throughout the story. This is one positive aspect, as grinding during the dungeons is self-sufficient, because you can return to lower areas to farm for recovery items, skill cards, and whatever else you need without using up any time. It's easier than Persona 5 because you never feel the need to have to return from a dungeon to regain your SP. In terms of difficulty, there are a few early game spikes in difficulty, and farming for experience can be tough if you fail to take advantage of golden hands. However, playing around with the modifiers can yield some useful results if you just want to get through the game easily to experience the story. To me, that's accessible, and although I normally do prefer a challenge in a game as long as Persona 4 that is a story-based game, this is a helpful feature indicative of good RPG design. Most of the fights are pretty standard for veterans of turn-based combat, but I do like certain mechanics like the shuffle system that shows you that Atlus did try something new in between games. The Mitsuo boss is one of the only bosses that actually makes you think, and I did grow to appreciate the multi-stage battle that makes Persona combat feel epic. The volume and variety of personas and combinations that you can make using them speaks for itself, although it could be said that your 6 party members could be using more variety, especially for a game that only really has a few basic elemental attacks, which become redundant when you can just spam physical and insta-kills. Persona 5 Royal is often getting lambasted for being too easy, but to me this is a misnomer for has good design with variability. Dungeon crawling in that game never feels like a chore, and to me, no two fights feel the exact same. I also don't like the fact that in Persona 4 Golden nothing really carries over to New Game Plus, besides your money and your compendium. All of your items and equipment are lost when you start a new game, which means grinding is kind of redundant if you want to play New Game Plus, because it's not going to last for that cycle. Persona 5 Royal has way more to do, and it shows a clear evolution from Persona 4 that we need to start taking more seriously. Persona 4 has pretty good design in the fundamentals, but over time we can see it has not aged great and other important aspects that make the game replayable. Persona 4 Golden has been criticized by some for indefinite portrayals of its characters, such as Kanji and Naoto. At times, of course, the incessant joke-telling, attempts at puns and slapstick anime tropes reinforces stereotypes by obscuring the introspective message that really is there and needs to be laid bare. I think people forget that some things may be lost in translation here. Persona 4 does have true things to say, and it says them unmistakably. For example, Naoto feels pressured into changing her gender in order to conform to society's standard, a male-dominated view of what a detective prince has to be. Kanji, having been told the lie passed down from generation to generation by insecure men, believes in order to be a man, one must be strong. A message he misinterprets to mean that a man must be stunted in his emotional development, using rage as a shield for vulnerability. These characters among the cast struggle with their identity the most, changing their appearances and feigning attitudes to suit what the world thinks of them, what their critics recommend they should be. The Midnight Channel exposes their repressed states of mind, or rather what releases out of them under the stress of the condition of being boxed into the corner society puts them in. The Midnight Channel is a view into our souls as much as it is a view into the warped mindset of the collective. In the end, we realize as much as they do, that Naoto never needed to act like a man, or play dress up as one, with a deeper voice and a pretension to masculinity. She didn't feel trapped in the wrong body. She felt trapped in a sexist holding pattern around the male-centric orbit. Naoto realizes that she can never be a man, and that she doesn't need to. She has all of the talents and intelligence that she needs to succeed, and nothing would be qualitatively different in her pursuit of justice if she had a cosmetic change of balls. Chie is similar. Chie channels her passion for martial arts into the hope to be a crime fighter, ignoring the fact that she will potentially face bigger, stronger opponents as a woman. She has a spirit that cannot be tamed. Kanji never needed to dye his hair a new color or hide his interest in dolls, or that he knew how to thread a needle. He didn't need to overexert himself beating up the toughest looking bikers in town to prove a point. He was as much a man whether he liked boys or girls or playing dress up as one. It's not about who we are on the outside, but who we are on the inside that counts. Society confuses us, distorts our self-image through false perceptions, leading people to make unnecessary changes to themselves and to others, like Chie or I, who feel that in order to compete with men or to be accepted by them, they have to fit into the other person's ideal woman, or else stay in their lane and be silent. Rize, tired of being seen as merely jailbait, becomes disillusioned with modeling, not realizing that she can use her influence as a platform to inspire others. Various other characters feel small, trapped into a cycle of self-pity and a circle of confusion. Persona 4 shows us that we cannot be and should not try to be what we're not. But we may be at different times a number of different things at once. We should accept all aspects of ourselves in order to be at peace with and better understand who we really want to be. We may hide behind projections, trying to change our appearances, but we are not changing our nature. Looks don't matter. After all, looks can be deceiving. These portrayals, as I see it, are indictments of social norms rather than harmful depictions of stereotypes of certain groups within a rigid, oppressive framework of conformity. Persona 4 plays around with this message, trying to hide its sincerity behind in-jokes which seem to come at the expense of the serious characters they are trying to display to us. There are plenty of perverted moments that can occasionally be funny and other times seem completely played out. But I believe a story can contain both extremes of these elements, and in some ways needs to in order for us not to take ourselves too seriously or too light. Persona 4 Golden is a game that means a lot to a lot of people. I frequently saw why that is during my 2 playthroughs of the game. Despite all the criticisms and slight imperfections, Persona 4 Golden is truly ambitious because it seeks to save us from ourselves and remind us of the little human moments that make up our lives. Because humans are all imperfect and so is life, but within a work of art, we can attempt to iron out the wrinkles, and maybe more importantly, learn to accept that wrinkles are just part of the fabric. It's such an essential message always, and especially today, that we should refrain from trying to change ourselves superficially, and rather try to understand ourselves better and understand each other. We should learn to listen instead of judging or jumping to conclusions about things we may not fully understand. It's only through the truth that we can truly be set free. Persona 4 is golden. A 9 out of 10. Great game. Every day is great
Seriously?
in Persona 4.
Thank heavens she's okay.
Now then, until next time, take care!